Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia, and I'm a Client Success Manager here at ClickUp. Thank you for joining us for the ClickUp Construction webinar today. It's really exciting to see we have about 400 participants so far joining us today, and I'm sure there will be more people jumping in as the webinar continues. So we're really glad to have such a diverse group of users in attendance today. And feel free to send us a chat message in your Zoom chat feature to let us know where you're coming from, and we'd love to give you a quick shout out. But in any case, just to clarify what's going to be happening in the webinar today, I'm going to be explaining over a 30 to 40 minute demo how you can utilize ClickUp for construction project management. And as I go through the webinar, you can feel free to send over any questions you may have as they come up. We just ask that you use the Q&A tab to do so. So we have ClickUp customer support representatives on to moderate questions sent over via Q&A. The Zoom chat tab is a great place to chat with one another, exchange comments internally, but we will not be moderating questions in the chat tab. So please use the Q&A area to do that. At the end of the webinar, I will be leaving some time to answer some of your questions from the Q&A tab live for you here. And just a special note that for those of you that are able to stay till the end of the webinar, we do have a ClickUp product specialist, my colleague Justin, on to give a sneak peek of the features that are expected to be released this week. So an exciting preview will be included for those of you who can make it to the end of the webinar. And just taking a look, we have people coming from all over Canada, Washington, Colorado, Mexico, Bogota. So really great to see everyone. Thanks for letting us know where you're coming from. Even Ireland, I know it's getting late for you over there in Germany, so appreciate you taking the time to attend this California-friendly time zone webinar. Great, so we're just about ready to jump in. Just one last note, this webinar is being recorded. So after it's over, you will receive a link to the recording so you can watch it later or share it with others. And we will also be posting it on our website so you can watch it anytime or register for future webinars. All right, so let's get started. In a time when many of us are working remotely, it can be challenging to effectively communicate with clients and internal teammates and monitor tasks to make sure that they're getting done. This is definitely applicable for pretty much all teams during this time, but it can be especially difficult for those working in construction because many of you might be going out back to work while some people might still be working remotely. So there's an unusual mix that can cause some communication issues when you're trying to collaborate. So today we'll be addressing ClickUp features and strategies that you can use to address these challenges. So I want to start out with my suggestions for organizing projects for construction. So I've created a ClickUp space here for my construction projects, and I've actually used one of our folder templates to create this construction folder here. So if you're just getting started with ClickUp, just know that you have a variety of ready-made folder templates available to you that you can search through and drop directly into your ClickUp spaces as you get started. So this is the one that I used here. And in this case, we're using the lists in our folder to break down the phases of a project. So preparing, construction, and finalization. This is good if your project needs are a bit more complex, and it allows you to break down a project organized at the folder level into smaller pieces or phases, but you can also always create just a simple standalone list to manage a project that you're working on. Lists don't have to live inside a folder, so if you're working on some pretty simple projects, you can always do that with a list. We also see that in this folder template, we have a wide variety of custom fields that have been created to keep track of confidence level for a task's completion, the progress percentage for tasks, And we even have some budgetary custom fields set up to keep track of our budget spent per task. And we have a formula custom field that makes it easy to calculate the funds remaining based on what we've spent out of our original budget. So this is our formula custom field, which makes it really easy to calculate two numeric custom fields that you've created. So in this case, it's an easy way to keep track of a budget. You can even use custom fields to add little notes about a task. But anytime you want to create a new custom field to add to your construction folders or lists, you can do so here quickly in List View and explore the different options available to you. In ClickUp, we also have what are called different task views. So they allow you to see your tasks in different ways. So you can see them in a list view, for example, but you can also view your tasks in a board format. So now we are in a list view at the moment, which makes it nice to break down tasks and associate them with their parent list so I can see which task belongs to each phase. But I can also switch over to a board view and see my tasks arranged by their statuses. So as my tasks get closer and closer to completion, I'll be able to visualize that, and I can even drag and drop tasks between columns to make quick changes. In a list or board view, you can always create different groupings as well if you want to highlight certain information, like organize tasks by priority to see most urgent tasks on the left, and change tasks and apply priorities quickly by dragging and dropping. Box view is another one of our task views, and it's really great when, as a manager, you may be trying to check up on tasks assigned to certain contractors or clients to complete. So in a box view, I'll be able to see a box for each person who has assigned tasks in this construction folder. And I can actually measure people's workloads based on different criteria. So let's start with the simplest option, which would be to measure workload based on number of tasks. So this makes it easy for me to see which tasks people are assigned to, what they've actually done versus not done of their assigned items. I can even check out this workload chart and get a nice bar graph of what people have been working on and how close they are to completion. If someone's getting a little bit too overwhelmed, you can also always drag and drop tasks between people to redelegate them. Many people also like to track time in their tasks, and a little bit later in the demo, we'll be jumping into a task so I can show you exactly where to track time. However, it's just important to note that in a box view, you do have the option to measure workload based on time estimate. So if people have been applying time estimates to their tasks to indicate how long they expect them to take to finish, that will be visible alongside the time that they've actually tracked against those estimates. So you can really see who's meeting their expectations and who's falling behind on tracking time or maybe exceeding their estimated expectations. Calendar view is a really simple way to see all of your tasks that have a start or due date. So as we can see here, I have a project level, or a folder level rather, calendar view created to view my entire construction project that I'm working on. And I can see all of the scheduled tasks that I've laid out. If I did have an unscheduled task, it would appear in my right sidebar here. And as you can see, I can drag and drop that onto my calendar in order to schedule it. This is a good way to manage a weekly task schedule if you're managing contractors, or if you just need a high-level overview of what's coming up on your agenda for a project. Calendar is a really simple way to do that. It's also visible on our mobile app, so while you're on the go, you can quickly see what's coming up on a calendar. You can also do things like change up the date scale of a calendar view to see a single day on the calendar, so a breakdown of what's going on hour by hour. or maybe even a weekly view so you can see what's coming up Monday through Friday for you on in your workday. Similarly to our calendar view, Gantt View is a great way to view any tasks that you have that have start or due dates assigned to them. So in my Gantt View, I can see in a timeline format all of the tasks that have been laid out in each of my different phase lists here. And I'll be able to even highlight over individual lists to see their progress percentage. So I can see I've completed 25% of my tasks in the phase 1 preparing list. In my phase 2 list, I'm still at 11.11%. This is also a great way to set up dependencies in ClickUp, which are obviously pretty critical in construction. Many times you'll encounter situations where one task can't get done before the previous task is completed. And in a Gantt view, I can actually easily hover over a task and drag and drop this line to connect it to another task and indicate a dependency so that this task is now blocking this task. It's also easy to drag and drop dependent tasks in bulk so that if I want to reschedule a couple dependent tasks, I can move them around on my Gantt view. I can even reschedule an entire list or an entire folder in bulk if things get off track and I need to push them back a little bit. So it's a very flexible way to make quick changes to dates that will affect an entire list or folder that you're working in. And keep in mind that calendar and Gantt view are connected, so any changes I make to dates in a Gantt view will be reflected in my calendar view dates and vice versa. So they all have to do with your task and list dates. In a Gantt view, you can also add sorting to arrange your tasks in different ways. So if you want to sort by start date, for example, and in any different task view, you can always switch over to me mode to instantly cut out the clutter and just see your assigned tasks. So obviously that's good for a manager, but it's also good for anyone that might be minimally using ClickUp and wants an easy way to focus in on the tasks that are most relevant to them. We just released a new Milestones feature as well, which are used to signify the end of a big group of tasks, such as, in our case, maybe a new feature being released. So if you have a task in a project that you're working on that you consider a milestone, you'll be able to open up the task and indicate that here. And that will be visualized in your Gantt view as well. So you'll easily be able to pick out those milestones and see them in the Gantt view. And keep in mind that Gantt view can be exported as a PDF to be shared with others. Finally, keep in mind that docs are great for managing SOPs or anything that you want to document at a high level, like a project plan or even an onboarding procedure for training a new employee. You can create doc views to manage that. Each doc can include embedded images, videos, along with lots of rich editing like headers and even checklist items. You can also choose to share docs publicly with people outside of ClickUp. So if you have a relevant doc that you want to share with others, you can send them a link to see that doc, or even embed it on your website if you wanted to share a company-wide doc. One other folder that I've created is our material inventory folder, which is obviously a great way to keep track of important orders that you've submitted for a client job or just general tools that you'll need to have on hand for any project. So in this case, I've created just one single list in my materials inventory folder to manage my main client. But if you're working with several clients, you could always create several different lists for your clients. And each of my tasks in this list represents an item that I've ordered for this project I'm working on for the client. And my tasks will move through unique statuses, which I've actually set up especially for my list here. So this, or excuse me, for the folder that houses this list. So my materials inventory needed a special set of statuses to show how tasks are being ordered, if there's any issues, and then once their installation is completed. So I created a separate level of folder statuses to manage that. Some more examples of how you can utilize custom fields. I've used them to a colorful drop-down field to indicate the different vendors I'm working with. If you collect payment via different methods, you could create a drop-down field to manage that. And of course, we have a due date custom field. So aside from my official due date for the task, maybe when this needs to be installed for the client, I have an arrival date indicated for when I can expect that item to be delivered to me. I've also created just a general tools and equipment list to deal with things that I'm just going to need to order on a pretty regular basis for my team for different jobs that they're working on. And this is also a great place to showcase our form view feature. So form views are one of our page view options, and they're a great way to streamline your intake process. So they can be used to collect things like client meeting requests or quotes. But in this case, I've created a form for inventory requests from my internal teammates. So here I've included several standard task fields where they can share with me what item they need, how many that they need me to order. And then there's several different custom fields that I've included here so that I can get information like what's the arrival date that they need and the reason for their request. And once a new task comes into once a new submission comes in from the form, it will be added as a new ClickUp task into my tools and equipment list. I've also created some automation for my tools and equipment list, which will prompt some things to happen when a new task is created in the list. So I'll come back to that in a moment, but let's jump back into the form briefly and I'll show you what this looks like when someone's going to actually create a new submission from this form. So I'm going to share this link with someone who needs to request some new items. And let's say that they need, this is the item that they need. They need 25 of them. They need it to be ready on May 19th, and they're going to indicate this is a high priority item. And then they can tell me whatever reason it is for their request. So now if we jump back into our ClickUp workspace, we'll see a new task has been created from this form submission in our list view here. Now, a couple of automations happened as well when a new form was submitted. So automations are a great way to prompt actions that ClickUp will take for you without you having to manually commit them. So in this case, I've created an automation for my tools and equipment list that when a task is created, a comment is going to be added in the task, and it's going to be assigned to me. And I will have to indicate as the manager whether this item has been approved. Then when I actually approve the item by checking off my little checkbox custom field here, I'm going to delegate it to my coworker with another comment telling him to please place the order for this item and change the status of the task to indicate that it's done. So if we jump into that new task that was created from the form, I can see that I've been assigned to the task to take a look at the request. And I can read in the custom fields here, okay, what is the item that they need? Why do they need it? How many do they need? And I'm going to approve this request. So I'll resolve my comment asking me to approve the request. And now that I've approval, my colleague is given an assigned comment to actually place the order for the task, and then he will close it out once it's done. So that's just one example of an easy way that you can automate any kind of request in ClickUp with that automation feature. That was a very high-level overview of automation, but we do actually have a more in-depth automation webinar if you're interested in learning about the intricacies of this feature, which you can find on our website. A couple of other things to note as well are that, first of all, you might be working in projects that contain sensitive client information, or maybe in certain instances you might want to share all of your folders, lists, or tasks with internal teammates because they're either private or you just don't want to bother them with those items. And in that case, you can actually set up privacy and permissions for folders, lists, and tasks. So I've actually already made my construction space private because I don't want everyone in my ClickUp workspace to be able to see it. So as you can see here, that this has been shared with only a few people, but within my private space, if I wanted to, let's say, make this construction folder private, I could navigate to the sharing and permissions menu for that folder in my left sidebar. And I can choose to make it private to select people. For anyone that I do invite to the folder, I'm also able to set permissions for what they can do inside of the folder. So I can give them read-only access, the ability to comment only, the ability to edit but not create anything new, or full edit access. So in any instance where you need to invite a client to work on a select folder or list, or a contractor, you can use our sharing and permissions menu to make sure they can only see what they should and only be able to take specific action. Keep in mind that you can also invite people as guests to folders, lists, or tasks. And guests are perfect in situations where you only need someone to take part in a few selections in ClickUp. So guests do not have access to spaces at all, and they will only see the specific folders, lists, or tasks that are shared with them. So let's say I need a client to look in on my task to sign our agreement, but I don't want to overwhelm him with anything else in ClickUp. So I'm going to invite him as a guest to just check out this one task. So I'll navigate to the sharing and permissions menu for that task, and I can just drop his email into this space here. And once I do that, I'll be able to also set permissions for what he can do. So again, maybe I just want him to have comment permissions so he can add some comments about things that he wants to see changed in the agreement, or maybe just a quick read over would be sufficient and I can give him view only access. So in any situation where you just need people to play a smaller role in ClickUp, just keep in mind you can invite them as guests. We've talked about me mode already, which is a way to quickly see the tasks that are just assigned to you, but keep in mind that by default you will be seeing tasks assigned to everyone. So I can always click here and open up our people sidebar, and I can get granular about whose tasks I want to see. So maybe I just want to choose these two people to see. I can always pick and choose a couple from the sidebar, which is useful if you want to keep tabs on tasks assigned to a couple of contractors you're working with. Keep in mind that if you have a bunch of different folders and lists where contractors are working on a bunch of projects at once, it's easy to create high-level views of what they're working on with our sorting and filtering options. So for example, let's say at my space level, in this space I have 2 different folders. I know that I have a contractor who's involved in a couple of lists in each of these folders. I can create a new view to just zoom in on the folders and or lists that this person is working on. So in my new list view that I just created, I'm going to add a filter by location. And this is going to allow me to pick and choose specific folders or lists inside of this space that I want to see. So I can get a high-level overview of just the bits and pieces that that person is working on. And beyond that, I can add some additional filters or even something like grouping. So if I group by due date, I can see tasks that are overdue at the top, as well as tasks due today in the future below. I can pick and choose 1 or 2 assignees as well. And if you have, let's say you like to use priorities to indicate a level of urgency for your tasks, you could also apply some additional sorting by priority to see the most urgent tasks at the top of each group. So it's easy to create views like this to easily monitor work at a high level for specific contractors. Keep in mind that if it's really important to you and it's one that you're going to want to come back to over and over again, you can always save it as a favorite. Favorites will be visible in your left sidebar here, and it's a great way to just store the views that are most important to you. So now no matter where I jump around in ClickUp, I can always come back to that view we just favorited and see that high-level overview at a glance. Let's take a look now inside of a task and just explore some of those features. So there's a couple of key features that I want to emphasize inside of our tasks. And quickly before I do that, I'm just going to make a quick adjustment in our space settings. So inside of the task, you'll notice at the top, you have the option in the upper right corner of the task to indicate an estimate for how long you think the task should take to complete. So this is a good way to hold yourself accountable at a high level when you're planning out a task or want to see how it fits in the larger project scope. You can set up a time estimate for that task. And then each person will be able to log time as they work on the task. You can do this via our manual time tracking option. But we also have a variety of time tracking integrations available, such as our Chrome extension, which is something that you can use to track time on the go. So all you'll need to do is open up your extension, even if you're not in ClickUp. You can quickly find the task that you're looking to track time in, and you can just start that timer from here. But you'll also be able to click the timer button directly from the task here to start tracking in it. This will also be synced to reports. So as a manager, you'll be able to see how much time each person has tracked over a specified period of time. And keep in mind, if you're interested in mobile time tracking, we have integrations with Toggle and Harvest. And if you download their mobile apps, you'll be able to integrate Toggle or Harvest with ClickUp. And you can actually track time on those mobile apps, and the time can sync back to your ClickUp task. So that's an easy option to track time via mobile. A couple of other relevant task features for construction teams are, first of all, in the bottom left corner, you can add attachments. So as you're working on a task, if you need to integrate with a cloud storage platform like Dropbox or Google Drive, you can actually create and attach files from those platforms directly in ClickUp. or add any sort of attachment that you need to a task for further reference. You can also create checklists for quick action items that someone would need to complete as they're working on a task. So I actually have an example of this for you here in this other task. So let's say you create an on-site daily checklist for people to work on. They can just pop this task open on their ClickUp mobile app when they're on a job site and quickly tick off the action items as they go. And this checklist can be saved as a template. So whenever you make a new task, you can just create a new checklist from that template and make it really easy on yourself. Lastly, one cool feature that I actually have set up right now, just to keep in mind, is our task tray feature. So if you're working on a task, maybe you're adding a comment and you get called away for some reason, you can always just click this button to drop the task into your tray. And now it's going to be available at the bottom of your screen. You can always click to open it up when you're ready. Your comment will still be preserved there, so you can get back to work on it later, and then just remove the task from your tray whenever you're done with it. So it's a really great way to just keep a couple of your most important tasks on hand at the bottom of your screen. And one other thing to mention about tasks is, of course, the comment thread. So this is a great place to chat with your teammates about what's happening in the task and the progress that needs to be made. So I can actually @mention people to trigger a notification that they need to take a look at the task. And I can even assign a comment to a teammate. So if this is a task that is, if this is a comment rather that is really important that I want to make sure is not going to slip through the cracks, I can actually assign this to my teammate. And that will ensure that it's going to be created as a line item on the left side of the task. So he can always click on it to jump back to the comment if the comment thread gets quite long. And he will also see that he has this assigned comment wherever he goes and ClickUp when he's looking at his assigned tasks. And it will not disappear until the comment is actually resolved. So it's a great way to create almost like a mini action item within the task. We talked about one example of using sorting, filtering, and grouping to create some customized views to get a high-level overview of someone's tasks that they're working on. But I also wanted to explain a bit more about public sharing. So anytime you create a view in ClickUp that you want to share with others, like for example, let's say I have a board view for my whole construction space, and I want to share this with my clients outside of ClickUp as a roadmap so they can get a sense of how all of these tasks are progressing. I can actually click here to share that with people outside of ClickUp. When you create a publicly shared link, you can also optionally choose to allow people to open tasks in the link and customize what they can see inside of the tasks. So maybe you wouldn't want them to see the comments that you're chatting about with other teammates or subtasks. Those can always be hidden if you wish. Another thing to mention, just a couple of other things before I jump into your questions is, first of all, our dashboard feature. So in the left sidebar here, you'll be able to create different dashboards to visualize progress for tasks related to your construction projects. So any dashboard that you create is private to you, but it can optionally be shared with other people if you want to let them see what you're working on. And dashboards can be created for different teams. If you want to create a dashboard for all of the different teams within your company that are working in ClickUp, you can do so. But in this case, I've created a construction-based dashboard here. So you could use something like a calculation dashboard widget to calculate the inventory funds remaining you have for this month to spend on any new orders for tools you might need to make. So in this case, I've linked a budget custom field that I have inside of ClickUp, and I've found the sum of all of the values of those fields that I can see easily inside of this widget. You can also create things like a custom pie chart widget. And in this case, I've made one to see my urgent tasks that are in active statuses within my construction space. I've also grouped by assignee so I can see how many urgent tasks each person has in this space that are urgent status. So it gives me an idea of how much people have on their plates. And then a couple of other ones that are good for construction teams would be, first of all, the portfolio. So as a manager, this will allow you to link specific lists or folders into one view so that you can monitor their health and progress in one place. So again, this would be another one. If you have contractors working across multiple folders or lists, you can simply link those locations to your portfolio. And once you do, you'll be able to see the status breakdown for those locations, the progress percentage. If you're using time tracking and estimating, you'll also be able to see the cumulative time tracked in that location versus the original estimate, and then how much time is remaining to complete that phase in this case. And then lastly, be sure to check out the time estimated widget. So here I can see a time estimate by team member within my construction space. So I can see how much time people have estimated for all of their assigned tasks in that space, how much time have they tracked against that estimate, and what the remaining time is to complete. Some quick final features to mention before I jump into some of your questions. For personal task management, check out Home View, which is in the upper left corner of the screen. So this is an easy place to go to just see what's most important for you. The areas I use of Home View the most would be my trending tasks. So I can come down here to see the tasks that I view most often, and I can click to open them up and get to work if I need to add something to them. And I can see anywhere that I have assigned comments or @ mentions. So if I have assigned comments that I need to resolve, I can do that easily here, or just check out any @ mentions that I have in tasks. In your inbox, you will be able to see all of your assigned tasks that are due today and earlier. And keep in mind that the inbox is also accessible via our mobile app, so it's an easy place to get to on the go to see your assigned tasks. And you'll also be able to see what you have assigned that's coming up next and what you've recently done. So a couple of quick places you can go to on your mobile app to see your assigned tasks. All right. So that's a high-level overview of some features that I would recommend utilizing in construction project management, but now I'm just going to take a moment to check out some of your questions. There we go. All right, Bill. So it looks like hopefully I was able to answer your question about managing resources across multiple projects, but I'm going to mark that one as completed for now. But if there are other questions about that, we're happy to answer that via our support email at help@clickup.com. Darren, the materials folder that I've created is not currently available as a template, but just to briefly reiterate how I created this, I have a list for each client and within my materials inventory folder, and then a general list for just internal tools and equipment I need to order. And each task represents an item I need to order. My statuses that I've set up for these tasks can be viewed here. And I also have a series of custom fields that I've created to manage things like expenditures, method of payment, and the vendors I'm working with. And again, all of this will be visible in the recording of this, which will be sent to you after it's over, so you can replay and recreate at a later time if you like the template. Let's see. How can resource management and leveling be done across multiple projects? Okay. Yeah, that was also sort of answered via my earlier example with the view at the high level, and hopefully the portfolio portfolio example answered that for you as well. Those would be some of my top recommendations for that. Brad, we have a question. What's the best way to organize multiple projects? Is each its own space or folder? What about different project sectors? Example, residential projects, hospitality projects, etc. The short answer to that question, Brad, is it really depends on your use case. Ordinarily, though, I would not suggest creating a separate space for each project. These are really just high-level containers that break up your workspace, and they should be used to organize things like teams or departments. So unless you're working, maybe on one project for a year or two, and it requires a huge scope to complete, I would not recommend creating a space per project. Normally what I would do is create one space to manage all of your projects, and then if you have a complex project, I would create a folder to manage it with lists. If your project needs are pretty simple, I would create just a standalone list inside of your space to manage that, and you can use tasks in that list to break down the to-dos that need to get done for the project. If you're using, and I think as far as breaking down different project sectors, what you have to think about is really just the size of the project. So regardless of the industry it's oriented around, I would say best practices are create a folder for more complex projects that have multiple phases or pieces involved. Create a simple list for projects can be completed by just checking off a list of simple tasks. Kent, you have a question. Can assignments and to-do lists be sent to Outlook? So we do have an Outlook calendar integration, which will allow you to send any scheduled ClickUp task to your Outlook calendar. And if you're in a calendar view, you'll be able to set up that integration here in the sync with calendar area. So this is a one-way sync, which will allow you to add any scheduled ClickUp task to Outlook. Changes made, though, will not be synced back to ClickUp via this integration, although there is a Zapier integration with Outlook that you can explore in your integration settings area here. And via Zapier, you can connect your Outlook calendar to ClickUp and sync changes made to ClickUp tasks in Outlook back to ClickUp. Ron, you ask, can I use ClickUp to track job costs by line item? You definitely can do so. In that case, I would use a custom fields to manage cost. So for example, in my construction folder here, I have a money custom field set up so that for each task I can enter in what have I spent for each of these different tasks. So if you're using a task for each line item in a project, you would be able to use a custom field to track cost. And in our list view, we even have a cool calculated fields feature. So I can calculate a whole column to find the sum, average, or range of those expenditures. Tina, you ask, I'm an entrepreneur. Lots of different things to do and many projects. Buy properties, renovate, rent, marketing, accounting, taxes, etc. Should I use projects or tags to make my to-do list easy to list and manage? What I would probably do is start simple and just create simple lists within a ClickUp space to manage each of those kind of categories. So let's say you have one space for all of your to-dos, and then inside of that space you add different lists for renovation, marketing, accounting. Each of those would be a different list. And inside of those lists, you can add a task for each renovation item you're working on, or tax items. So it's better to keep things simple if you're in doubt, and you can always scale up and create folders if you want around those lists. But I would start simply and just have different lists for each of those categories within one space. All right, we'll just take a couple more questions. Pete, you ask, is there a way that the completion of the checklist items will roll up to the completion percentage of the subtask list? And then, of course, roll up to the task completion percentage. So one thing that you can explore is creating an auto progress custom field. So with this option, you will be able to track the completion of tasks based on the completion of their subtasks, checklist items, and/or assigned comments. So that would be one easy way at a high level to see, let's throw in a checklist here just as an example. As I'm ticking off these items, I can see the progress percentage for my overall task go up. If I had subtasks, that would also be shown as well. So yeah, and if you had subtasks in here, you would be able to track that custom field for the subtask as well. So for example, in this subtask, if I add another checklist, in my list view, I'll be able to come in and see there have been some checklists finished in this subtask as well. So that would be one easy way to roll up that progress for a task or subtask based on completion of the checklist items. All right. Is there a way to create a meeting agenda / minutes within the Docs feature that can incorporate ClickUp tasks? Yeah, Justin, feel free to jump in on this one with me if you have any thoughts on this. My immediate thought would be to mention that in a doc view, you can mention relevant tasks as you're creating your meeting minutes. So if I want to, I can actually put the double at symbol, and I can choose a task to mention it and add any notes about this. So it's in line with that specific task, and I can even open up that task directly from the doc. That would be an easy way to document your meeting minutes within the ClickUp doc feature. You can even mention other docs, so you can jump around between them.
Yeah, I'd be the same. You can also embed a whole list in a doc, but I think for this particular case, that would be less useful. It'd be more functional to do it as you have with the embed. I also quite like using tasks for meetings with checklists as agenda and subtasks as follow-up items. But if you do want to use a doc, you could definitely make a nice layout and just have the tasks embedded mentioned here as your item to go through.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. All right, so we'll just take a couple more questions and then I'm going to ask Justin to give us a little sneak peek of upcoming features this week. I want to make sure that everyone's gotten, people that haven't gotten a question answered do. Marvin, you asked, can folders, task dependencies, etc. be imported into ClickUp? Yes, so if you're an admin, you'll be able to check out the import export settings area. And here you'll be able to import from a wide variety of different software. But if you're finding that you're coming from a different platform that we don't officially have an import from, we do also have the CSV import option. So we'll help you map your CSV columns to ClickUp. Dependencies currently cannot be imported into ClickUp, but that's definitely a suggestion that we're aware of and thinking about for the future. But right now you'd have to match our accepted columns here when importing via CSV. All right, let's take one more question from Jennifer. How many levels of lists can we have? If I have 7 client projects going on at a time that can last about 6 months, should I have a folder for each, or should I have one client folder with a list per project? Or would a folder level per project be better? And then would a dashboard be the summary view? Yeah, again, so it does depend a little bit on your use case, but generally my recommendations for working with a client would be, just to showcase as an example, I would have a folder for the client. And then I would, in that folder, create a list for each of the services that I'm going to be providing for the client. And you can also do this if you have multiple projects going on for the client. You could create a list in the client's folder for each project. And this is, again, good if it's easy for you to define for each list what are the to-dos that I need to get done for this service I'm providing or this project. What are the to-dos I have to get done for this project? Again, if you're working extensively with just one client, or a couple of clients, and you spend all of your time working with that client, in that case, you might want to scale things up one level. So having a space for that client, a folder for each project you're providing, for each project you are executing rather, and lists within each folder for the phases of the project. So it's something you'll need to think about a little bit when you're determining what organizational structure makes most sense for your client workflow. There's only one level of list, so it's not possible to nest folders or lists at this time, although that is something that we are considering for the future. It's not on our roadmap quite at the moment. And then the dashboards can certainly be used to get a summary of what's happening in your client folders and lists. Dashboard widgets can be filtered by location, so you can zoom in on select spaces, folders, and lists to see their relevant task data. All right, so that's, I'd like to now take a moment and pass this over to Justin, who will be able to give us a bit more information on upcoming features that we have this week.
Okay, awesome. Let me just get set up here. Okay, so we've got a couple of things coming this week. If anyone was on the webinar last week, you may have actually seen a couple of these. We did have to push them back a week, but they're going to be pretty exciting when they come out. There we go. Everyone should be able to see my screen now. Can I get Sophia to confirm that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. So the first thing I want to show you is we're releasing threaded comments. So previously, if you had a comment like this, in order to reply to Alexander here, you'd have to type a new comment. However, what you'll now be able to do is simply hit reply to thread and type a comment directly underneath. You can only go to one level, so you can't reply to comments on comments, but you can just kind of continuously reply within this overall thread here. And these comments can also be assigned to people, I believe, and so you'll get notifications similarly. Okay, next up, we have a similar thing, but with image proofing. So here you have an image, and perhaps you're working on graphic design in this image, and there's an issue on the image. It can be really difficult to try and write a comment and like describe where the issue is. It's like, it's above this part and below this part, and it's just a whole bunch of text. It's really frustrating. So instead, what we'll be able to do is simply drop a point that will create a comment here, and you can then write, what needs to be done on this particular point. That can be assigned, and then similarly, it can be replied to as a thread. So these are both coming out, scheduled for tomorrow. So keep your eyes out for that, and that should be really, really good, very useful, particularly, I guess in a construction sense. This one might be quite good if you do have plans and blueprints in order to kind of really identify what's happening next, who's assigned to it, and any particularly changes would be great. Awesome. I'll pass back over to Sophia, but do let us know if you have any questions in the Q&A. I'll be on there and answering questions as well.
Great, thank you so much, Justin. Yeah, so we're coming to the end of our webinar today, and if I did not get to your questions today, I apologize, but I just wanted to reiterate that we have an awesome support team that is more than happy to assist you via chat or email at help@clickup.com. So any of your questions that you'd like more feedback on, please do reach out to us. If you have a ClickUp workspace already set up, you can always contact us via chat by clicking on the little question mark here and opening up a new chat with our support team. We also have a variety of different onboarding resources and training to help you as you get more familiar with ClickUp. And you can always jump to our webinar page here at any time to see what webinars we have coming up in the future. And we will be posting a recording of this shortly after it's over on this webinar page as well. And again, that recording, since you are attendees, will be emailed to you once it's been processed. But thank you again so much for your time and for attending the webinar today. We look forward to hearing from you in the future, and be sure to check out what other upcoming webinars we have in the next several weeks. Have a great rest of your day.